It was the weirdest thing to see that monstrous of a super band that they just like reduced themselves down to doing Bob Seger tunes. It was like that was just the weirdest, dumbest moment, and I'm glad that they survived through all that because I really like that band. But then they put out, I didn't like Saint Anger, and this isn't supposed to, turn around into I'm not trying to slam Metallica. I think that they'll be okay. I think they'll be okay even with maybe some real, critical feedback here. Nobody cares about my opinion. So that's, but I think that we all saw that, I think it's a really good example of why you need to keep going. You're going to have those suck moments, and in a way, I'm glad Metallica had their suck moment because it's like watching Jerry Springer, it's like we watch that stuff because it makes us feel better about us for the moment. And you know what, musicians, we kind of need that. Like we need to be reminded that even like these super successful guys, like, dude, they run out of ideas too, you know? Like that was some rehash garbage. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm just I like Bob Seger just fine, but I want to hear Bob Seger do Bob Seger. I don't want to hear James Hetfield do Bob Seger ever, not ever. So I mean that's opinionated of me, but I don't know, that's weird cross branding stuff. It's like sometimes it works really well, sometimes it just doesn't. I mean, I think Hendrix made Dylan's All Along the Watchtower way better. I just think he did. I think most of us can vouch for that. But I don't know. I don't want to hear James Hetfield sing Bob Seger, and vice versa. I don't want to hear Bob Seger sing Metallica shit ever. Like, don't ever do that, please. So, okay, to get off the Metallica point, but to bring it full circle, is that in a way, I'm glad that they had that moment. It might sound a little sadistic of me, but I think that it's just a good sign that humility, like you can't ever lose that humility, and you can't lose that faith that like things will get better. We have our suck moments, and here lately, you put out an album, it's the best album you've ever put out, and once you get rid of that first 100 run of CDs that you ordered, and you're kind of sitting around going, okay, now what? You order another 100, okay, but what's the ultimate like goal? Like, I mean, just selling CDs? I mean, is that like what all this is boiled down to? I mean, how does the music survive and stay off of a shelf from getting dusty or from people just not knowing about it? So to you guys out there, I would definitely suggest, if you haven't looked into Jesse Josephson, watch anything and everything that guy has to offer. I've been watching his videos for like 2 years, and I'm just now at the point, like I said, I started making my new album, which is called Caution Funky Kids at Play. Literally started that project 2 years ago this month. Yeah, 2 years ago this month. So we got it done in March, and that has kind of propelled everything. I mean, in a way that it's propelled me wanting to do a podcast. It's propelled me wanting to help educate, and really talk about the micro music business, which another shout out to Rick Beato. Love Rick Beato's podcast. If you guys haven't, if you guys are in the music world, I'm sure you know who Rick Beato is. But there's one episode specifically that I just came across, which just absolutely blew me away. He had a guy on there by the name of Ted. Now I can't remember his last name. But they talk about the micro music business. And I was just absolutely floored because I came across this video like 2 weeks after or maybe 3 weeks after I filmed my very first podcast episode. And I thought I had this great, brilliant idea on the micro music business, and I was like, I'm obviously very passionate about it enough to where it's like I was like, hey, I think I can start a podcast based around this. And then here it is. I'm watching Rick Beato, and he's got this guest on there, and you guys got to check out the episode because it totally reconfirms everything that I'm basing my show on. And it was really cool to hear that it's like, oh, wow, man, like, obviously, like, I'm obviously not the only one that's really thinking this way and trying to help other musicians try to gear themselves this way. Because the macro side of the business is just, I want to be careful what I say because you don't want to sound like a poor sport. Like, oh, well, I wasn't ever invited to the party, so the party must suck. So I don't want to sound like that. But there are a lot of things to the macro side of the music business that I just don't want any part of. Granted, there are a lot of my personal heroes that seem to navigate those waters really well. I just think that it really is such a small percentage that can do that and that can do it well. And I think for most of us, for me specifically, I just have always felt that I can get a lot more done if I'm approaching things from a micro level. And that's just how I feel about it. I almost think that a lot of the people who are on the macro side, the artists and the musicians themselves, I think that they probably approach things from a micro level also. But there's so much grandiosity to the macro side of it, and I mean honestly, like, things going on like in the public media with Diddy and all that stuff. I mean, and I know that that's like the hip hop world. I don't know anything about the hip hop world, and on and on, but it seems to be one of the more extreme kind of scenarios that if you're gonna get into that world, you're gonna kind of take on a bit of a thug mentality. And creative people, we need to. I think that we kind of tip towards the chaos side of things a little bit easier, and in order for us to live healthy lives, we actually have to be a little bit more conscientious and in the mind that set that we do have to tilt ourselves towards some order, because we can, I think a lot of us in the creative side of the brain, we can really tip towards just absolute chaos. We can kind of thrive in it, actually, which is really dangerous. And I don't think it really leads to fulfillment, like a fulfilled life. Trying to be an artist and trying to be fulfilled in life are just two. They seem to be they seem to be antithesis of one another. But like I said, the whole point of this podcast is to talk about these things. To talk about, I'm going to talk about some of the tougher issues when it comes to trying to be involved in music and in the business at all. but I do believe that trying to maintain as much of your um, creative control and try to maintain as much ownership as possible, you know, um, that's just gonna set. I think it'll set you up for success.